committee in the Tom Baker Meeting Hall. We'll go ahead and start the meeting. Whitney, if you could call roll.
Administrator Tomanek,
Here.
Commissioner Cleary,
Here.
Commissioner Munson.
Here.
Okay, we'll just go through the regular agenda. Item A is approval of meeting minutes.
I would make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Munson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cleary,
Yes.
Administrator Tomanek.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item B, 2026 budget discussion. We've got 4 items under there. I guess if we want to go item by item, I believe, at least my understanding from the last joint meeting, neither of you were on it virtually. I just
Virtually.
watched it. It sounded like a lot of these items were going to be going back to the county for discussion and possibly decisions. So I guess if you want to give us an update on where you're at,
I
starting
certainly-
with public health, maybe.
Yeah, I
Let's work
certainly
our way
can.
down.
Like on the public health side, I brought it up to the commission. I presented again all of the findings that we had last year, as well as the reasons why I think we should continue to increase our support. I even gave them the alternate theory that if this is something that the commission, Burleigh County Commission is going to do on their own, if that's the case, we still don't have enough money in our budget to do it. So either way, we need to increase our budget. During that conversation, I did get somewhat of an agreement or a nod from one of the other commissioners that thought 15% would be okay as a raise, as opposed to last year I asked for 25.
Sure.
And so I think we're on the right track, depending on if Renee has a much larger budget this year than last year.
So I think I can, if we want any specifics, we'll have to bring Renee
Yeah.
up, but I can speak to, from what I have seen with the public health budget, it will be very comparable to last year. Obviously, some of it is dependent on grant funding
Grant
and stuff,
funding,
but
yep.
from what we know as of right now, a lot of that is going to
Yep.
remain consistent from the state level,
Yep.
that sort of stuff. So 15% would put it at a 60-40 split instead of
Right.
the 75-25.
Yep, roughly, yep.
But that wasn't voted on
No.
or any.
No, it was a kind of a consensus, this was, without having numbers from Renee, we really couldn't present anything, but
Sure.
I presented my case as to why we needed to increase, for 2 different reasons. And, again, I did get some nodding at the table that we should be increasing.
Okay. I guess I'm not sure where Renee, do you have an additional direction you want from either board as far as like an actual approval of anything?
I guess as far as direction, if you wanted to, I can work with Dimitri and the city finance team just to come up with a number. Just to kind of give you a brief
Yep.
overview, I briefed Commissioner Cleary a little bit on where we're at for our finances for the budget for 2026. Obviously, we're seeing federal cuts at the federal level coming down to us. That's going to be impacting the state of North Dakota initially, and then coming down to some of the contracts that we have that's passed through to us. But that means that a lot of those grant funds, if there's no expenses, because it's a direct expense and a direct reimbursement, there's the revenue offset the expense. And so that's just gonna, that really doesn't impact how much the local tax levy is or the cost share between Burleigh and Bismarck. But when I'm looking at, as far as funding goes, I am trying to keep things like level funding, being very conservative, just because we know that there are impacts at the local level as well with the legislation that was passed for tax relief, property tax relief and such. And so some of our grant programs have told us to plan for level funding. And so taking all of that into consideration, I could present to you some numbers and show you what a 60-40 would look like, or a 75-25, if you guys want a couple of different options and that at least could have some dollar amounts.
I think both the 75-25, because that's where we've committed to that part of it. But the 60-40 would be a good number to have as well.
Okay.
Because we'll move into budgeting in June. And so that would be good. I'll need that number at that time when I present.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, because I think even if you can put together, you know, even if they're still a little bit rough, I think we know hypothetically what any of those, like whether it's like staff, you know, salary increases, that sort of thing. Because, I mean, when you look at, so I have the 2025 Joint Powers Agreement and the dollar amount in 2025 versus the dollar amount in 2024, when I believe that both years were 2575, right?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
Because the increase dollar amount wise was less than $2,000.
Right.
So it was like, realistically, the budget for public health is pretty stable. And so if we're not expecting anything dramatic in 2026, we can assume that those increases will be mild. She can kind of give you like an idea of what that looks like, but then what
That'd be
those
good.
dollar amounts are, because I
Okay.
think the dollar amounts will help you
Yeah,
get to an actual decision.
right.
So,
Okay.
okay. Did you have anything else you wanted to share with us, Renee, or?
Not really that I can think of off the top of my head, unless anybody has any questions. I think that just for your guys' awareness for funding sources for us, and I think I presented this last year, our federal grants are 33% of our total operational budget. The local tax levy is 30%. Fees for service is 20%. We get 11% revenue, that's state aid, and then there's 6% that is from private grant funding. So it's actually a healthy mix of revenue sources that we have. I know there's a lot other areas that rely more so on federal grants, up to 50%, and so I feel like we have a good revenue mix when it comes to looking at that. So even though we're going to be seeing potential decreases in our federal grants, we're better off maybe than some other health units that have up to 55% federal funding. So
Yeah.
just for your awareness.
I don't remember hearing those numbers before, so they are good numbers to have.
Yes. I have a little pie chart I can send you.
Perfect.
Okay, I mean, I think that that's probably all we need from you for public health. Obviously, from a city perspective, we can't make any of our decisions until we know where you guys are
Right.
sitting. So the sooner we can get to at least what we think is going to move forward in your budget, then we can adjust accordingly. So,
I think in June during our initial budget,
Yeah.
conversations, it'll be a pretty hard conversation right then.
for sure.
We'll
And I
know.
think Renee can provide the split, what 50-50 would look like, since I know
Yep.
that that's been talked about, but then also what 60-40 looks like, where you're at right now
Yep.
with your like initial 25
25,
commitment,
yep.
and like, because even if, like, in my opinion, obviously, like, you and I have had this discussion here before, that the 50-50 split or moving in that direction is ideal when you look at the tax base, but any increase to me is progress. So,
Yep.
once we can figure out where you guys are comfortable, I think we can just move forward, and the city will, I think, be happy with any increase we can, any way we can move the needle in that,
They're
with
all
that
Burleigh
discussion.
County
So,
residents.
exactly.
And so that's where we need to continue to move towards that direction.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Renee. So item 2 under there is the city-county building. I don't have anything to add about it, I guess, but it's not
I can tell you
mine.
that our next round of bids are opening up tomorrow. What's
Okay.
that, on the 8th? So we should be able to make our final decisions at that point, which means we're not going to be out of here this year. It'll be, I would guess it'll be all of next year. The way the contractors were talking, they felt it was a 24-month construction cycle. So if we're signing contracts in May, we will be here for another 24 months.
Okay. Sounds good. 24 months. That's really the only update you were looking for with that, right, Jason? Or
Correct. I guess for our own planning purposes, if we're going to have 25% of the building
Right.
to ourselves or for our own uses again, we would definitely want to plan for that ahead of time, looking at renovating the space, doing something differently with it, not knowing what any of those
Yeah.
discussions even look like at this time. We do have funds budgeted for this year for architectural services under the assumption that this was going to be the county's last year in the building. We will work with our finance director to roll that over. I don't think it's appropriate to start planning now until final decisions are
Yeah.
made, so.
We haven't accepted the contracts either.
Sure.
So it is, in my opinion, about 5 million over budget.
Okay,
And so I know I can't support that. If the other commissioners do or not, I don't know. But I won't be supporting it at that dollar.
because if I recall, the funds that were identified for the Provident Building renovation are related to ARPA.
Correct.
American Rescue Plan,
Yep.
and so you've got a finite amount of cash on hand, but at the same time, that needs to be spent by 2027?
Into 2026.
Yep,
Into 2026, so you're sitting on something that needs to happen too,
yep.
one way or the other.
Well,
Okay.
I understand the rock here and the wall here.
Okay.
All right. So we're basically, that's still in the waiting period until you guys come to a conclusion with those
I would
bids
assume
anyways,
once
so.
the bids are open on Thursday, then we will schedule a special commission meeting the following week to review
Okay.
and see where that goes.
But if we know that it sounds like a 24-month period of construction, I feel like
Yep.
that's probably all we need to know at this point,
Yep.
so. Okay, the Burleigh County Courthouse.
I guess in general, we as the city of Bismarck, we've got the city attorney here too, but can't suggest that we would be doing anything different than what we're doing today.
No.
With the courthouse, with security, with all the facilities in place, with just the general expectations of the customers. I think we're very content to continue to be a tenant in the Burleigh County Courthouse, so long as that satisfies the landlord as well. And as far as, rates, we understand things change, and if there's an adjustment there, we would just appreciate knowing what that is ahead of time, so we can work that into our budgets for the future.
The only
So-
adjustment I would see is personally advocating for zero rent because we're renting to the Burleigh County resident. I don't understand why we have rent, honestly. I know a few years ago it went to match what the city was charging the county, and so that's where it's stabilized. To me, I don't think there should be rent at all, but that's just my personal opinion.
I think in your opinion, no rent, like city doesn't pay rent for the courthouse, and then you guys don't pay rent here?
Nope, I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that at all. No, in my opinion, we should not be charging the city rent for the courthouse. It's already a public building owned by Burleigh County. I don't know why we would charge rent to the city residents.
Sure, okay, I
For
get what
that.
you're saying.
I know there's at least one other commissioner in that same thought process. It hasn't changed, but it's been talked about and advocated to be that way.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess, like Jason said, as that gets discussed, then you can let us know where you land, because that'll affect us.
As of now, what
So-
it's been in play is the price per square footage that the city charges us is what we're charging the city.
Right,
You know,
yeah,
and
and it's
so
more of an accounting thing.
It's an
Yeah.
accounting thing, and it'll stay the same unless we can win out on the conversation that becomes zero.
Sure. Okay, anything else about courthouse that I'm
Nothing
not?
for me, thanks.
Okay,
Nope.
this is not my usual scenario, so just don't want to miss anything. Okay, and then IT would be the last one under the budget discussion. Is there anything changing from you?
Not for us. I think
Okay.
it goes back to that 24-month construction cycle for the Provident Building. That's how long if we would be in the building for that long, we would have to have IT services for the same amount.
Sure.
I believe our finance director's online as well. Dimitri, are things the same on our end of things as far as providing the services to the county?
Thank you, Jason. What I would say is
that generally every year we kind of increase the price just based on how much staff costs are for us, and so we just proportionally increase that price, and we just keep going based on just inflationary or whatever the staff cost us. We basically take that proportion and just add it to the county. So like probably between 4% and 6%, probably somewhere in there range. Does that sound reasonable, commissioners?
I think it does.
I mean, and we're just, you're basically just saying we're basing that off of salary increases and inflation, et cetera. Just adjust, just adjust to accommodate that, and services remain the same.
Yes, Commissioner Clary. Basically, unless Tandra tells me something we've added, which I'm pretty sure, I don't want to speak for Tandra, but our IT manager, unless she tells me something different that we've added, which I don't know that we have, I think it probably stays about, just goes up with inflation, and that's just to support our staff.
Okay. Does anyone have anything additional to add IT-wise? No? Okay. So then item C is Provident Building Update, which I feel like you kind of already touched on.
Yep.
But is there anything else to add to that other than
I think,
bids are coming?
no, like I said, Thursday at 10 is the last round of bid openings, and everything will be compiled at that point. And like I said, it's been indicated that we will do a special meeting shortly thereafter, so not on Friday.
Okay. Jason, you have any other questions about that, or?
No, I just appreciate the awareness and time to plan accordingly. So we'll watch for the special meeting and keep in tune with what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, thank you for your patience with us throughout this whole process. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we understand construction doesn't just
It's
happen
not the
overnight.
funnest, most fun of processes, so.
No.
Okay, any other business? All right, we are adjourned.